This is the continuation of our lesson from the genetics. And today we will be discussing about the human genetic disorders and inheritance of traits. This is the part 1, and my name is Ray Valencia, and I do hope you stay with me as we go along with this lesson. This is Gregor Johann Mendel. He was a scientist, a German-speaking Silesian or Moravian scientist, founder of modern science of genetics. And also, he did research about using the common pea plant. He conducted series of experiments on plants 1853 to 1861. Also, he found that the forms of pea plants traits were transformed from parents to offspring. And also, he was considered as the father of modern genetics. This is garden pea plant, Opissum sativum. Mendel had excellent choices for 4 reasons. 1, available in Europe. This is available all throughout the Europe. 2, easy to grow and matured quickly. 3, sexual organs of the plants are entirely enclosed in the flower. This means that the pea plant self-pollinates or fertilize eggs with the pollen from the same flower, which allowed Mendel to control the reproduction process of the pea plant. He introduced pollen from one flower to the pistil of another flower, cross-pollinating between plants to perform his experiments. Finally, different varieties of the common pea had different traits that could be observed from one generation to the next. Mendel examined 7 different traits. Each trait had only 2 possible variations. Mendel studied only one trait at a time to help him formulate his conclusions about heredity. The first thing he needed to do was to obtain purebred plants for the trait he wanted to study. A purebred plant is a descendant from the ancestor of a distinct type or the breed. Purebred plants in a given species or variety all share the similar traits. For example, a certain variety of daylily may have a particular flower color. This trait is inherited from the previous generations and results from a long period of selective breeding. Mendel produced purebred varieties of pea plants through selective breeding. He chose plants that were tall, for instance, and bred them together. These plants produced seeds, which Mendel planted and grew. Some of these plants grew tall and some were short. Mendel selected only the plants that grew tall and bred them. Why do we need to know this? Mendel is known as the father of genetics because of his groundbreaking work on inheritance in pea plants 150 years ago. Also, he chose peas because he had been used for similar studies, or easy to grow and can be sown each year. And pea flowers contain both male and female parts called stamen and a stigma, and usually self-pollinate. Self-pollination happens before the flowers open, so progeny are produced from a single plant. How can we know if pea plants are purebred? Mendel crossed a purebred tall pea plant and a purebred short pea plant. The resulting F1 generation was all tall pea plants. Mendel then allowed plants of the F1 generation to self-pollinate. In the F2 generation, 787 of the pea plants were tall and the 277 of the pea plants were short. Tall is to short, or 787 is to 277 approximately. Once Mendel had his purebred plants, pure tall and pure short pea plants, he designated them the parent generation. Then he crossed a true breeding tall pea plant with a true breeding short pea plant. The offspring from this cross were the first filial generation, or F1 generation. Mendel called the F1 generation hybrid plants to indicate they were the result of a cross between two different purebred plants. This is called monohybrid because only one trait, plant height, was involved. What happened when Mendel planted the seeds of the F1 generation? According to the theory of blending inheritance, the pea plants should be medium height. But what Mendel obtained was that 100% of the pea plants in the F1 generation were tall. This led Mendel to conclude that the trait for tall pea plants must be dominant, and the trait for short pea plants must be recessive. A dominant trait is a characteristic that always appears in an individual. A recessive trait is a characteristic that is latent, present, but hidden and inactive, and is therefore not usually expressed in an individual. Thus, the trait for tall pea plants was dominant over the trait for short pea plants. All the pea plants grew tall as they possessed the dominant traits for size or tallness. An organism's genes found in its DNA make up its genotype. It is the genetic makeup of an organism. The phenotype is the appearance of the trait in an organism. For example, you might have two genes for eye color, one brown gene and one blue gene. If so, you might have brown eyes color. Your genotype is one brown gene and one blue gene, but your phenotype is brown eye color. Mendel carried out this experiment many times using true breeding plants for each of the 7 traits he had chosen. He got the same result every time, that is, one trait was dominant over the other. Mendel concluded that heredity was definitely not just a blending of traits. He also concluded that when plants with two contrasting traits are crossed, one trait is always dominant over the other. Therefore, it states that when plants with contrasting traits are crossed, the offspring will demonstrate only the dominant trait. The next experiment Mendel conducted involved breeding the F1 generation. He allowed the hybrid tall plants of the F1 generation to self-pollinate. This produced the second filial generation, or F1 generation. 3 out of 4 pea plants in the F2 generations were tall, while 1 was short. Mendel repeated this experiment many times and examined all 7 traits. The F generation resembled one parent from the P generation 70% of the time, and the other parent from the P generation 25% of the time. This ratio of 3:1 is also called as Mendelian ratio. Why Mendel ended on 3:1 ratio? One, each parent in the F1 generation starts with two hereditary factors. One factor is dominant and the other is recessive. The factors that separate from the parent, only one factor from each parent is contributing to the offspring. Each offspring inherits one factor from each parent. If the dominant factor is present, it will be expressed even though the recessive factor is also present. The recessive factor will be expressed or appear if only recessive factors are present. This is another illustration of dominant and recessive. Capital T is the dominant or tall, and small t is the recessive or short. On this box, we have F1 generation from parents, pure short or double T, pure tall or double capital T. Capital T and small t's appear all tall, meaning dominant. For this box, F2 generation from hybrid parents, phenotypically or appearance, the ratio of tall to short plants is 3:1, but genotypically it is 1:2:1. That is 25% of the progeny are pure tall or double capital T, 50% of the progeny are hybrid tall, capital T and small, and capital T and small. 25% of the progeny are pure short double T. Remember that 75% of the pure tall and hybrid tall plants appear, but only 25% of the pure short plants appear short. Please do watch the part 2 of this lesson coming up next. Thank you for watching.